In case you missed our last episode of Life with the Polites, MRL, Marriage, Relationships, and Love, here's what you missed. Turning our wounds into wisdom. Turning our wounds into wisdom. I want us to think about this right now, our audience here. Many of us come to realize as we've journeyed our relationship lessons learned that our enduring, because we endure, involves degrees of pain. And what I would like us to understand is that the truth of the matter is that failed relationships hurt. Failed relationships, they do hurt. And we've all been there. We've all been there to experience that hurt brings upon pain. And from the pain comes our change. When it hurts enough, we change. When it hurts enough, we will change. And I want us to really think about this for a moment. Let's talk real quickly about adversity, because for many of us, adversity for us is the path to our truth. I just mentioned that a lot of times we have to endure certain degrees of enduring pain. And what I would like us to also understand, let's get back to the truth, because that's the adversity that comes along. Unless we let go, unless we forgive ourselves, dealing with this type of wounds, unless we forgive the situation, unless we realize the situation is over, then our turning our wounds into wisdom will be displayed. Will be displayed, and more importantly, will be delayed. Now, that's the real truth. That's the real truth for us to truly understand that there are stages in which we have to grow to for our restoration out of what we're experiencing. Let's even think about this a little more. Let's talk about emotional pain. Emotional pain is one of the hardest to live through. Why? We're talking about relationships going bad. Why is it that emotional pain is so hard to live through? Because it hurts two ways, deeply and mentally. That's why we have to grab hold of this. How we experience relationship pain allows us also to understand something very important here, where the healing is needed. Coming out of a relationship going sour, coming out of a relationship that's going bad, we all, men and women, must discover where the healing is needed. I say this simply because it's not something that we can ignore. And I think that's very important to a lot of things in regards of our relationship. We simply can't ignore or refuse to take notice of it. It's maturing in those areas that we must deal with. Now, we've all traveled in those circles, and we've all experienced hurt. We've all experienced wounds of a relationship, but I think it's very important for us to fully acknowledge where the healing is needed. We got to find out where it hurts at, whereas we got to move through the process. We've all lived in degrees of hurt. If we don't understand that we have to move through the process, how will the change occur in our lives? Now, I said three things that I think is very important for us to understand. Three things to challenge our viewers on the call. Challenge us to lead not just them, but those who find themselves enduring to avoid self-letdowns. We spoke about being fully acknowledged. We're talking about not being in denial. That's what that's talking about. Many people surrounds themselves coming out of wounded relationships. Many people find themselves in denial and protecting themselves from the truth. How can we be abused and find ourselves in denial? And what I would like us to do is I want our audience to comment, make some comments. Tell me about situations that you think or have lived through that interact with what we're talking about tonight. Equally important, share where you guys are visiting or watching or coming live from. Give us your country, your state, your city. Let us know if we can say hello after the podcast is over with. But let's let's think about what I just said. Many people go through horrific relationships and come out with denial. They refuse to grab hold of where it hurts at. The thought of emotional awareness, the sensitivity, even the willingness to stand strong in what they went through, they turn away from. Somebody ask yourself why, because that's the genesis of what we're talking about tonight. Why? Better yet, many people will say, oh, it's not that bad. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. People in denial. Oh, it's not that bad. Protecting themselves from the truth. How do you get around refusing to find yourself on the back end of abuse, on the back end of enduring, and you are not willing on embracing that the fact that you are living in denial, that you can't concentrate on the hurt. You refuse to go deeper in the emotional awareness, the sensitivity, but you're willing on turning away from reality. We've all known people and been around people in certain degrees in our circles who understand that. But I want us to also talk about what we said earlier, talking about moving through the process and changing. What does that mean? What does that mean to a relationship that has gone bad? What does that mean for scars? What does that mean for hurt? That means that we must now focus on growing and living in a responsive posture. We must be able to react in a positive way, and in a lot of cases, in series of actions, if required, to achieve what's needed. I said earlier, we got to find out where the healing needs to be and not allow ourselves to self-explode in pity. Now, none of what I just said, none of what we are talking about thus far, understandably, happens overnight. Our transition, I want us to understand this, those that are following us, think about this. Our transition in life brings upon our change, and it takes time for that transition to come about. But more importantly, think about this. You can add and you can believe that, you can not accept the truth. You cannot accept dealing with the emotional pain. You cannot accept turning your wounds from the relationship. But here's something that each and every one of us will face: a test. You will face a test whether or not to see whether or not you're truly committed to the life that you say you want, to the life that you choose to pursue. Failure is not going to give you a free get out of jail card because you refuse to live in denial. We are, many of us that go through this transition also have to face the test. The test of, what do I really want? Am I willing to aggressively commit myself to the life that I say I want? Now, I say to my audience again, let me know in the comment section if this topic is providing any type of insight, past or even current relationships. I think it's very important that we understand holistically that we all live through this. This isn't designated for a certain kind of person, a certain kind of man, a certain kind of woman. We've all had our stages, smaller than others, that we've had to endure about this. But let's continue. Let's think about something real here. Relationship, life real. I want you to really think about this and let me know in the chats if anyone has been around in their circle people that feel this way. A lot of people have been put through hell and they call it love. And we found out through all of this that the pain not always flares or comes up in tears, but it comes in the midst of smiles. So what am I talking about? We're talking about a relationship that's been led on dishonestly. And in the midst of it all, individuals have been caught going through a tremendous battle of whether or not they're true to the relationship or dealing with the hell that surrounds it, but refusing, like I said earlier, to embrace the truth instead of the denial. There's always truth in pain. There's always truth in pain. There must be growth in our pain for those who seek it, though. It's a double sword. You can't have the denial and then seek truth in your pain. A lot of people have fallen under what I call believing that they have to suffer pain and affliction to be loved. It's not true. You don't. And that's part of the degree in which we're trying to get to. Can anyone in the audience relate to anything that we are talking about right now? And if you can, leave a comment, because this is very real for people that find themselves stuck. And I'm gonna come back and use that word later, stuck, because they refuse to see that there is better when they embrace the truth that we're talking about. We said there's truth in pain. And many of us that find themselves in this predicament, we struggle. We struggle going through relationship pain. We struggle going through relationship hurts. And I believe that for those who overcome their scars, they find themselves healed. They find themselves healed. And their healing is proof of two things. Their healing is proof of their strength and their survival of what lies within them. They have to make it happen. They have to believe of the better. But then on the other hand, those who don't, they are willing to remain stuck. They're willing to remain stuck as they are, still in the pain of the events of the relationship that caused the pain, that caused the stars. We have to come to the point that enduring and having ourselves placed in predicaments, we have to yearn to be and want to be healed. We have to want that. We have to want that. We have to want the yearning of being healed from emotional hurt. Because when we don't, we're offering up something. We're offering up our after effects of the relationship. We're offering up the after effects of the relationships. And what it proves is that we are calling ourselves a victim, a wounded victim. We have to want the yearning to heal. We have to want not to offer up just a wounded victim approach, But we have to see that we have to grow and mature and see the higher of how we're going to obtain the life that we say we want. There's going to come a time when we must realize that our beliefs or what we tell ourselves don't make us the better person. Because a lot of people find themselves stuck in that. It's our behavior that does. It's our behavior that makes us the better person. And if we never heal from what hurts us, then we will continue to bleed on people who didn't cut us. There's two things that we can do to let go of this type of pain. There's two things that I believe that we can do to let go of this type of pain. First, as I said earlier, we must take the time to heal. We must take the time to heal. And we must not pass this pain on to somebody else. That's a mouthful, because that's the world we live in. That's a mouthful. If we fail to recognize our unresolved past, and when I talk about our unresolved past, I'm talking about the rotten pain. I'm talking about the pain that exists that we find in denial. If we fail to recognize this, we will continue, I believe, to echo in every aspect of our lives, echo the same thing that's leading us to cause unintentional emotion toward each other, toward other people who are not near the problem that caused what we're going through. I think that a lot of people find themselves, rather than suffering through more pain and allowing it to affect their relationships, they must be willing on learning from the experience. They got to learn from the experience to heal. And the healing settles them. And the healing, by selling them, help them break free from the cycle of hurt. We could only address what keeps us stuck. Why, audience? Why? Why do people that allow themselves to be wounded in relationships willing to remain stuck? Someone in the chat, give me a perspective. Why? Why is it that there are people willing on remaining in a relationship in spite of emotional pain and withdrawal, in spite of the relationship not going to the next level, remain stuck? Why? Why? On the flip side, I think we also have to take a couple of things in notion here. We gain far more by working through it and learning from it, and then making smart choices based on what we've learned. We have to be the aggressor. We can't find ourselves in a relationship going sour and expect to be saved. We have to find what's in us that's going to bring us or toss to us that SOS. We have to be willing on grabbing it, grabbing hold of it, and being pulled out of it. It's amazing, audience. It's amazing how many people have the ability to lie to themselves, saying that they've moved on when they haven't. They say, oh, we're fine, and they're not. It's amazing. They remain in this hole of being battered and scarred with a resistance to grow and mature and turn the other way. There's a couple of things I think is very important for many people to understand. And one is that healing doesn't mean the pain never existed. It means the damage no longer controls our lives. We've all been there. The pain only leaves us once it's finished teaching us. A lot of us, I believe, in relationships going sour, going bad. A lot of us understand that we're not meant to stay wounded. I think that's a very, very fair assessment of how many men and women define where they are. And I believe it's true because we're supposed to move through our tragedies. We're supposed to move through our challenges. We're supposed to move we're supposed to move through the tragedies and the challenges that have brought us the painful episodes in our lives. We're supposed to move through this stuff because by remaining stuck, we're stuck in our hurt. And what happens when we are stuck in our hurt, it blocks our transformation. It blocks our something that many people must also consider is that when we fail to notice what I call the gifts essential to our wounds in a bad relationship, if we overlook the lessons that we are meant to receive through them, we are missing the big picture here. Because if we remain focused on what we're doing by the means of our change, our growth, we discover something. We discover that the wounds are the means to where we enter the hearts of other people. We take the burial of what we've went through, we've lived through, and we've moved on to another level in relationships. And people recognize that in our hearts because of our change. Because wounds teach us something very important. Wounds and hurt teaches us how to be compassionate. Think about that. You've been hurt, you've been wounded, you know, and you've defined within yourself the means of being compassionate. And it brings upon wisdom because you've been there, done that. It brings those things together. We got to also remember as we go through these degrees that I spoke of earlier, we must remember that without pain, without sacrifice, we would have nothing to live through. It's the way of our pain that we arrive of having any type of experience. That is what prepares us to move through and live through the challenges of the next relationship. It's very, very interesting how many of us don't allow the time needed to rest from a relationship. It's very, very interesting. And I say that simply because wisdom is nothing more than our healed pain. But if you don't allow yourself to rest and embrace what you've been through, it's like a circle. You're not even allowing yourself to sit back and truly understand the experiences in which you just went through, how you were handled, and what the effects has on you. So it takes us to a degree of where we have to stand and truly understand what's needed from self. Some of us can relate to the term that I have to take care of me now. I have to do me now. I have to put me in a better place now. A lot of times we hear that because we've endured and we have the scars to prove it. We've gone through the depths of difficulty and it's our turn now. I want us to think about that, because without that, we are now challenged in trying to find the strength from the hurt that we are emerging from. Something, artists, I want us to really think about, and I'll be very interested in what you think, is the means of what we go through to be toughen in the capacity through the tensions of a bad relationship. Some people say you got tough skin now. That comes from something. And sometimes that comes along from hard relationships. That comes from hard relationships because we've begun to shift. We've become to shift and reinforce ourselves. And what we've found out by reinforcing who we are, we've come to realize something. We've come to realize something, that we are not the same person that we were. And that's where we're after. We're not after remaining in denial. We've taken the punches, we've taken the bruises, and we have reinforced ourselves in who we are to become. And part of that growth, and part of us truly understanding, the better we become, not that person, but we now look forward of becoming and maturing into another person. Let me say it this way. We get to this level, and then the things that we allowed to tolerate ourselves is unbearable now. It's unbearable. It's like the Heisman, not here, not having it no more. It takes a very hard demeanor and relationship failure for us to get to that point, for us to stand firm with the capacity to say, not here. Been there, done that. But how do it takes the needle for a lot of us to get there? I'll go even further to say that brings out the one who was once quiet, now they're speaking the truth now. When we've been battered enough, change happens. When we've been battered and taken granted of, change happens. We start a journey of understanding two things: worth and value. Another thing that happens when we go down that road of understanding our worth and our value, our eyes and mind now begin to open and see that we deserve better, and that the situations that we deserved is what we need to take us to levels of growth and maturity. And that's where we're going to spend our time, and that's when we're going to spend our energy and our focus. Now, all of that is easier said and done, but it takes us to a level in which we have to truly rely on ourselves to get there. I said earlier, no one's going to send you or toss to you a life raft to save you. You have to have the ability of wanting, the yearning to heal, and not resisting the change. Not resisting the change to go back to where you came from. I think a lot of it really comes down to us truly understanding that we're letting life live through us. And that's what we got to get to. We got to get to the point to where we have the scars to prove it, and we've went through the change. We now have to let life live through us. And we begin with loving ourselves. We begin with no longer sending out energy of desperation to anyone, because we're filling our own void. We have to grow to be the source. We have to grow into being the source that will attract better. And we've all been there. We've all lived cases of lives that we've endured, We've gotten wounded. We've gotten hurt. We've been taken advantage of, used, and abused. But the more we love who we are becoming, the less we seek validation and approval from other people. And that's how we tie this in. We tie this in by loving ourselves and becoming more of whom we used to be. And we're not seeking approval from anyone. We're not seeking approval from what we were or what once was. We're not. We're realizing how better our lives are once all the brokenness and all the hurt and all the negativity related to what we went through are no longer there. And that's how we mature to where we got to go. I like our audience to grab hold of this because this is the best part of moving and going through and moving through, is that we have to come to the capacity of understanding that as we endure degrees of pain, we have the capacity to feel deep pleasure because we've put ourselves through the test. No one knows your story the way how you do. Nobody can tell your story. Nobody can tell you your defeat in a relationship. Nobody can tell you the scars you came out of a relationship. Nobody can tell you the hurt that you suffered in a relationship. So when I talk about feel great pain, no one has the capacity to tell your story like you do. And what you've developed from your embracement of all that, you've put yourself in a position to feel deep pleasure if you allow yourselves the opportunity to yearn healing and move to another level in yourself. I think it's very, very easy for us to say that those who have fallen normally rise. They rise to overcome who they once were. And it's a story that we've all lived through. That's a story that we've all been a part of. It's a story, of new beginnings in our lives if we take the step forward to conquer it. And what I ask my audience tonight, is there anyone that you can honestly think of that this topic relates to, that had the capacity to conquer, and you bear witness to what they used to be and to what they are now? It takes the capacity to conquer with strength and validation to come out of that hole. And it's not easy. And sometimes you don't have the support around you to make it happen. It takes strength and power. It takes strength and commitment. It takes strength and the willingness to succeed. Everyone's going to form their narrative. You can't worry about someone else's narrative. You have to be able to dictate the truth, stand by the truth, and become the person that you are pursuing. I said that many of us fall hard because we do. We fall hard in relationships. Many of us fall hard in relationships. Not all suffer, but when we are unfortunate enough to be on the other end, it's hurtful. And a lot of times, what comes along with it is the scars that we live with that transform us into something better. So I want us to truly think about how we allow ourselves to let life live through us. Coming out of that equation. How do we do that? What is our means of truly wanting to show to ourselves the validation that in spite of the rejection, in spite of the hurt, I've made a decision to be the person to pursue a better me. That doesn't happen overnight. And it takes a conscious mind to want to be the person that they choose to pursue. I said earlier, we have to become the source. We have to grow into a source that attracts better. And that means that not all the time individually, but collectively. We have to get away from the way of thinking that we are on an island by ourselves. Because we're not. Because as we work through it, we learn from it. And our choices and our decisions become better from what we've learned. But we have to have the mindset, the strength, and the commitment to turn the corner. We have to have the willingness within ourselves to really understand that what's behind me is not where I'm headed. I ask again that our audience really think about some of the things that we spoke about this morning and how parallel it can be in lives that can or have surrounded you. And think about just how hard it took individuals to come to a level that you see them now. And the time they spent to survive. I said earlier that the pain doesn't leave us until it gets through teaching us. That doesn't happen overnight. And it takes us an enormous amount of understanding and desire to want to overcome. Because remaining stuck is not where we need to be. Remaining stuck in the pain of the events of our relationship that caused the scars is not where we want to be. We're burying ourselves. And we've given up hope to move forward and become one better. I want us to also understand something real quickly, that we have to be able to understand that we are pursuing the change that will bring us out of the abandonment of the wounds and the scars of our relationship to a place to where we are seen and respected differently. And for us to be able to attract that, we put in the work. To be the person that you truly want to pursue, you have to put in the work. You have to decide that your circle will change, that your circle must change, and your inner self will change, because part of the transformation that's going to take you to where you need to go will not work in the same environment. It will not. And if we continue to have the mindset to move forward, as painful as it may be, because for a lot of people, we're under the illusion that everyone must take the journey with you. And that's not true. This type of pain, these types of scars, they foster a new you. It brings us to another level of developing of who we are and who we are pursuing in the newness of the life that we are seeking. We can't get that in the same environment. Our surroundings must change. Our thought patterns must change. The things that we refuse to accept has to be a part of our lifestyle. And it's a growing commitment to ourselves. It's a growing commitment because once we have fully acknowledged that we are not going to embrace denial and that we are truly going to deal with the hurt and where it's hurting at, we are now going to move to another level in ourselves. Because what holds us back is not really one embracing the truth. I said a while ago, you got people that are under this illusion that say, oh, it's not that bad. And they are suffering. And they're talking about it's not that bad. They're going through degrees of hurt and humiliation, but it's not that bad. Why? Because they're living in denial. They don't have enough trust and worth in themselves to see themselves in a better environment and situation. This truly exists. And I believe that many of us have been in situations and surroundings where we have seen this live out. Emotional pain is real. Emotional pain is real. Emotional pain is hard to live through if you are not willing to go all in. We must be willing to be able to go all in because it hurts. It hurts deeply and mentally. And when we've realized that the situation is over, then we are now embracing what we call real truth. There's no more delay. There's no more falsehood. We've come to the brink of where we've seen for who we are that it did not work and why it didn't work and the failure of ourselves of not embracing that we have to move on. We call that avoiding self-letdowns. And that's what a lot of people embrace. They embrace self-letdowns on themselves because they truly believe they cannot be or find themselves better. And that's not true. The process requires us to change. The process requires us to change. Turning our wounds into wisdom requires change. It's requiring to acknowledge what the truth is. It's requiring for us to understand what we have to let go. It's requiring that we have to forgive ourselves. We have to forgive the situation. But equally important, we have to realize that the situation is over. That's the real truth. That's not denial. And that's how you punch your ticket out of there. I want us also to share that we come to a point that we really would like our audience to really understand that this relationship journey that we all are on is a journey of life experiences. There's more than you can count. There's not one that fits all. And when that pain, when that hurt comes, it will bring you change. And if you live in denial, you will find yourself battered. So I want us to really think about something that I also believe is very, very important. And I love to hear you guys' comments or perspectives about what we've been talking about and what we're sharing, and how the insight of what you believe can help others, and how the reflection of wanting to find how much your value and worth means not to you, but you pulling yourself out, and others seeing the strength and the capacity that you are making that can help them also see a light of better, see a light of seeing more than what we're leaving behind. Let us not struggle. Let us not struggle in trying to define our pain and our wounds unrealistically, because we want to be able to understand where the healing is needed. The mind, the heart. Let's be very conscious that we take the time to embrace all that the degrees of what life is taking us through, that we become to another level and another means of challenges to bring us to a point to where we can truly see ourselves as better and overcome the scars. Prove to ourselves that we are capable of healing and showing to ourselves the strength and the survival techniques and skills needed for us to grow and mature. I think that's very, very important. And I like to say something for those that are still online before we leave. And I think it's, again, very important that we have the energy of not showing any type of desperation that we are not able of fulfilling the need for us to come out of this situation or a situation and not be happy, because we are responsible for our happiness. And as I said, the more we love and the more we become, the less we see approval from others. We have a few minutes before the episode closes, but I like to take this opportunity for those that are still here, that if you enjoyed this episode, I'd like you to text someone right now. Tell them you have a podcast that you recommend that they listen to, and you tell them to listen and get back to you and tell you what they thought about it. And then you guys continue to share it with others, because that's how we're going to help everyone pursue the life and the purpose that they're hungering for.